breaking news alert.
8 months after a Clarksville soldier was stabbed to death, 2 people have now been charged. Good evening, I'm Courtney Allen. Katia Dueñas-Aguilar was found dead in her home back in May. Steve Mailing talked with her family today as the arrests come to light.
Porque ella me había dicho que su último día en la base era el 5 de mayo y ella regresaba a casa conmigo.
A decorated soldier, a devoted mother, a brutal crime. PFC Katia Dueñas-Aguilar had spent years serving her country, earning awards, and building a future for her young son. She was just 23 years old, stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, far from her Texas hometown, but determined to make a life for herself and her child. Her dedication to the Army was undeniable, but in May 2024, her promising future came to a horrifying end. Katia was found inside her home, stabbed nearly 70 times. The brutality of the attack stunned investigators, leaving them searching for answers. Who could have done this? And what? At first, the pieces didn't add up. There were no signs of forced entry, no immediate suspects, only a young soldier, silenced in an act of unimaginable violence. But as detectives began pulling back the layers of her life, they uncovered secrets no one expected. A marriage hidden in plain sight. A connection that led them to 2 people now sitting behind bars. And a case that would take months to unravel. This is the story of Katia Dueñas-Aguilar. A woman who dedicated her life to service, only to have it stolen in the most unthinkable way. Katia Dueñas-Aguilar was the kind of person you never forget. She had a presence that could light up a room, a warm smile, an infectious laugh, and an energy that made people feel at home. Those who knew her describe her as hardworking, kind, and fiercely independent. But more than anything, she was determined. She had dreams, and she was willing to put in the work to make them a reality. Born and raised in Texas, Katia was a graduate of North Mesquite High School. Even as a teenager, she stood out. She was active in her school's JROTC program, showing early signs of leadership and discipline, qualities that would later define her time in the military. But there was another side to her as well, a softer, more artistic side. In choir, she found joy in music, a way to express herself beyond the structured world of JROTC. Her former teacher remembers her as a bright, vibrant young woman who was always smiling, always bringing positivity into the room. She had a future filled with possibilities, and she wasn't afraid to chase them. In 2018, fresh out of high school, Katia made a life-changing decision. She joined the United States Army. She was just 18 years old when she enlisted, stepping into a world of discipline, structure, and service. She trained hard, pushing herself through basic combat training and advanced individual training at Fort Eisenhower, Georgia. Her focus? Information technology. A crucial role in today's military, requiring intelligence, problem-solving, and technical expertise. She proved herself quickly, and by 2019, she was stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, as part of the 101st Airborne Division's Combat Aviation Brigade. Katia wasn't just another soldier, she excelled. Over the years, she earned multiple commendations, including 2 Army Achievement Medals, the Army Good Conduct Medal, the National Defense Service Medal, the Global War on Terrorism Service Medal, and the Army Service Ribbon. These weren't just tokens of service. They were proof of her dedication, her resilience, and her ability to thrive in an environment that demanded the best from her. But Katia's proudest title wasn't just soldier, it was mother. Somewhere between the long hours of training and deployments, she was also raising a child, a little boy who was the center of her world. Balancing military service and motherhood is never easy, but she did it with the same determination she brought to everything else in her life. She was building a future for him, ensuring he had the best life possible. Her family recalls how much she talked about him, how she dreamed of what their future together would look like. She was only 23 years old, still so young, with so much ahead of her. But in May 2024, everything changed. It was May 2024 when the unthinkable happened. PFC Katia Dueñas-Aguilar, an accomplished soldier, a loving mother, a young woman with her whole life ahead of her, was found brutally murdered in her off-base apartment in Clarksville, Tennessee. The discovery sent shockwaves through her family, her military community, and the investigators who first stepped inside the crime scene. What they found was beyond horrific. Katia had been stabbed nearly 70 times. The wounds were concentrated around her neck and upper body, deliberate, frenzied, and ruthless. This wasn't just an attack. It was personal. Whoever did this didn't just want Katia dead, they wanted to make sure she suffered. The sheer level of brutality made it clear, this wasn't random. This was rage. And who would want to harm her in such a violent way? At first, detectives looked at the most common scenarios. A crime like this, so brutal, so excessive, often points to someone close to the victim. A domestic dispute turned deadly? A personal vendetta? Was there a jealous ex? A dangerous relationship no one knew about? Katia's family was shattered. Her mother, Katia Dueñas-Aguilar, and her sister, Cecilia, could barely comprehend the news. Just days before, they had been planning a future together. Katia had talked about moving back to Texas. She was supposed to pick a state, pack up, and start fresh with her family. But now, all those plans were gone. Instead of welcoming her home, they were pleading for justice.
Algo raro en la muerte de mi hija porque yo no sé qué pasó, yo no entiendo, no encuentro una respuesta porque ella me había dicho que su último día en la base era el 5 de mayo y ella regresaba a casa conmigo.
Studio microphone, my daughter is dead, and no one is going to stop it. Help me get justice for her, Carmen cried out in one heartbreaking interview. Katia's sister, Cecilia, recalled their last conversations. She had asked Katia if she was happy. And her answer? Studio microphone, no. It was a chilling response in hindsight. Something wasn't right in Katia's life, but she never got the chance to fully explain what was going on.
Look up at her and I just feel like she's still there. I just try not to feel alone because she wouldn't let me be alone whenever she was still here.
The family
Then
says
came a strange discovery, one that made investigators pause. As they dug into Katia's life, they found something unexpected. She was married, but no one, not her family, not her closest friends, seemed to know about her husband. Who was he? Where was he? And why had Katia kept their marriage a secret? His name was Reynaldo Salinas Cruz. And as investigators would soon learn, this so-called marriage was only the beginning of the mystery. As investigators dug deeper into Katia Dueñas-Aguilar's life, they uncovered something no one saw coming, a secret marriage. On paper, she was a wife. But in reality, it was a marriage no one even knew existed. In October 2023, just 7 months before her brutal murder, Katia had legally married a man named Reynaldo Salinas Cruz. He wasn't another young soldier like her. He wasn't someone from her past. He was 40 years old, nearly twice her age, and an immigrant from Mexico. And what stood out most? None of her friends or family had ever heard of him. Why would Katia marry a man she seemingly had no real connection to? It didn't take long for investigators to find the answer. The marriage was likely fraudulent. In the military, marriage comes with benefits, financial perks that help soldiers support their spouses and dependents, housing allowances, extra pay, health coverage, and for the civilian spouse, a path to U.S. citizenship. It's a system meant to support real families, but it's also been exploited by those looking for a shortcut. In this case, Salinas Cruz had everything to gain. Katia's military status could help him stay in the U.S. legally. And as a married soldier, she would receive additional financial benefits, money that could help her as a single mother. But was this just an arrangement? Or was there something deeper going on? Then, another twist, a revelation that shifted the entire investigation. Salinas Cruz wasn't just a man looking for a green card. He was already married. Back in 2020, he had tied the knot with another woman, Sofia Rodas. The two had built a life together, even purchasing a home in Cumberland Furnace, Tennessee. But their relationship didn't last. By 2022, Rodas had moved on, marrying a new man, a Fort Campbell staff sergeant named Jeffrey Thompson. That marriage was short-lived, ending in heartbreak when Thompson tragically died by suicide in October 2023, just 3 days after buying them a house. The connections were getting more tangled, but nothing prepared investigators for what they uncovered next. Sofia Rodas wasn't just connected to this case by marriage. She was directly involved in Katia's murder. In a shocking turn of events, authorities charged Sofia Rodas with first-degree murder. The same woman who had once been married to Salinas Cruz was now accused of brutally stabbing Katia nearly 70 times. And Reynaldo Salinas Cruz? He wasn't just a distant, unknown husband. He was charged with tampering with evidence. What was the real motive? A love triangle gone wrong? A deal that turned deadly? Or was there something even darker beneath the surface? Investigators were closing in on the truth. But the deeper they went, the more twisted the story became. By December 2024, the case had taken another major turn. A Montgomery County grand jury returned indictments that finally put names to the crime. 2 people, connected by marriage, deception, and secrets, were officially charged in connection to Katia Dueñas-Aguilar's brutal murder. Sofia Rodas, 35 years old, was charged with first-degree murder and tampering with evidence. Investigators now believed she was the one who carried out the vicious attack, stabbing Katia nearly 70 times. The brutality of the crime suggested deep, personal rage. But why? Then, there was Reynaldo Salinas Cruz. The man Katia had secretly married just months before her death. He wasn't charged with murder, but he wasn't innocent either. The 40-year-old was indicted for tampering with evidence, suggesting that after Katia was killed, he played a role in covering it up. But was that all? By the time the charges were announced, both Rodas and Salinas Cruz were already in federal custody on unrelated charges. That meant neither of them was free when the indictment came down, raising even more questions. Had they been involved in other crimes? Had investigators been watching them for months? Or were they simply caught up in a web of lies that had finally started to unravel? But even with the arrests, key questions remained unanswered. Why was Katia targeted? Was she trying to end the fraudulent marriage? Did she threaten to expose the arrangement? If so, was that enough motive to kill her? Or was this about something more personal? Jealousy, control, revenge? Then there was Sofia Rodas. If she was the one who carried out the murder, was she acting alone? Or was Salinas Cruz involved in more than just the aftermath? Could he have planned it? Ordered it? Or even been there when it happened? And what about the army? Katia wasn't just another young woman. She was an active duty soldier. That meant the Army's Criminal Investigation Division, CID, was also involved. But so far, they had said very little. No official motive had been released. No statements explaining why this happened. Just a quiet, ongoing investigation that left more questions than answers. Was the full truth being hidden? Or was this case even more complicated than it seemed? As the legal process played out, one thing was certain. Katia's family was still waiting for justice. And the real story behind her murder was still unfolding. For Katia Dueñas-Aguilar's family, the arrests weren't enough. The pain of losing her, the horror of how she was taken, was something no indictment or courtroom decision could ever undo. Her mother, Carmen Dueñas-Aguilar, spoke through grief, her voice breaking as she said, "My daughter is dead, and no one can bring her back." Those words carried more than sorrow. They carried anger. They carried a demand for justice. Because for Katia's family, this wasn't just a case, it was a fight. A fight to make sure her killers faced the full weight of the law. A fight to make sure no piece of this story was left hidden. They pushed for the harshest charges, refusing to let Katia's name become just another headline. Her mother and sister, once making plans to move and start fresh, were now making different plans. Court dates, legal battles, and public pleas to keep her memory alive. And while the grand jury's indictment had brought some answers, it also brought more questions. The legal process was just beginning, and the investigation was far from over. Prosecutors would present their case, laying out exactly what they believed happened the night Katia was killed. Witnesses would take the stand. Evidence would be revealed. And one lingering question would hang over the trial: could there be more arrests? Because while Sofia Rodas was charged with murder and Salinas Cruz with evidence tampering, investigators still hadn't fully explained the timeline. Did anyone else know what was going to happen to Katia? Did anyone else help plan it? And then there was the army. Katia had been an active duty soldier, and yet, no official statement had been released explaining how a member of their ranks could end up the victim of such a brutal crime. The Army's CID had been involved, but what had they found? Was there classified information that hadn't been released? As of now, there were still missing pieces. And while the legal system moved slowly, Katia's family refused to let her case be forgotten. They wanted justice. They wanted the full truth. And until that day came, they would keep fighting. Because Katia wasn't just a soldier. She wasn't just a mother. She was a daughter, a sister, a friend. And her story wasn't over yet. This case is still unfolding, and we may not know the full story for a while. There are still unanswered questions, missing pieces that only time, or a courtroom, can reveal. What really led to Katia's death? Was this just a violent act of jealousy? A love triangle that spiraled out of control? Or was there something even deeper, something calculated, something planned long before that tragic night? We know there was a fraudulent marriage. We know there were secrets. But was Katia truly aware of the danger she was in? Or did she trust the wrong people until it was too late? As the trial approaches, more details will come to light. More evidence. More testimony. And possibly more arrests. But for now, all we can do is wait and hope that justice is truly served. What do you think? Was this a case of pure jealousy, a fraudulent marriage gone wrong, or something even more sinister? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to stay updated on this case and hear more true crime stories like this one, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. Because the truth is still out there.